y'all. It's your host, Miss Shany G if you nasty. And this is the first episode of That's How You're Feeling. Yes, I know, very Toronto of me. But this first episode is super important to me because I want to talk about something that I think a lot of us are dealing with right now, which is the millennial crisis. Now, you might be like, what is that? What is the millennial crisis? Well, baby, it's what we in right now. That's really and truly what it is. It is what we are in right now. So, currently, myself, and I think a lot of other millennials, I'm 33, born in 92. Ow, shout out to my 90s babies. Right now, we're coming to the point where we're realizing that the future that we thought we were going to have isn't actually present. And I know this is for a lot of people where we thought we were going to grow up and have the lives that either our parents had or maybe even our grandparents. Maybe not our grandparents, but definitely our parents. So we grew up in the 90s, a time where we were all outside, where we were enjoying life. Yes, some of our parents might have been struggling. My mom was a single mom, but life just felt more attainable. And now you might say, hey, Shani, that might be the delusions of a child. And it probably was. But even as I was growing up, it almost felt like the dream was slipping out of my hands, if that makes sense. So what I'm saying is the affordability of housing, being able to find a job, not having to hustle. There's so many things that I felt like was moving further and further away from a possibility for myself. So we're going to get into it. We're going to get into what are some of the things that are causing, the millennial crisis. And I think one of the big ones, and we're going to talk about this, is wages haven't kept up with inflation. Now, I know you've heard this before, and I could get into statistics, but this ain't the podcast for that. I'm not going to lie. I want us to have real conversations that we would have one on one where we don't know the statistics, but we feel the reality of what's going on. And so, yeah, wages haven't kept up with inflation. I remember, so I'm from Toronto, in Ontario, we were having this conversation like 10 years ago about bringing up the minimum wage to $15. That was like a big thing. And I remember the government stopped it at 14. And at the time, I think I was making maybe like $11.25 an hour at the time where I was working. I was working at a grocery store, so I wasn't actually making that much money. But $15 sounded like a lot, right? Like when you think about it, 10 years ago, $15 an hour didn't sound too bad. But now, when we're looking at what you need to make in order to function in a lot of these major cities, it's like $30 an hour, $40 an hour. And our minimum wages are still sitting at 14, 15, $11, $9, depending on where you are in the United States. So where has the money gone? I'm so confused because I'm seeing all of these companies get a huge increase to their bottom line. Like when we're thinking about grocery stores, when we're thinking about places like major retail stores, I'm not going to say their names because I don't know how this works. I ain't trying to get sued, but these major retail stores are making so much money. You have CEOs making like $20 million a year, and yet the average worker isn't having an increase to their wages. And so what does that mean? That means when there's an increase, not an increase in wages, but an increase in your rent and an increase in the cost of food and an increase in the cost of homes, what ends up happening is you now don't have the money to afford literally to live. Like what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to make it? Because right now it seems almost impossible to make it on a single wage. It literally feels impossible. And so, what else does that mean? That means that all of my friends are working 2 to 3 jobs. All of my friends. I don't know anybody who doesn't currently have a side hustle. I really do not. And I think we also need to talk about that hustle culture. So, I'm from the Caribbean, Trinidadian, kayak, Grenada, shout out to my people. We have a hustle culture. We 100% have a hustle culture in the Caribbean. That being said, in the Caribbean, a lot of people are still able to live lives. They're still able to enjoy their families. They're still able to have a good time. You're not seeing that here. You're not seeing that in North America. People don't have time to enjoy themselves. And I'm not speaking to say that it's like, whoo, living your best life in the Caribbean, because there are socioeconomic issues there as well. But what I'm saying is the hustle culture in North America is different because it takes so much more to make ends meet. It takes so much more. So you have people working two, three jobs, back to back shifts. You're on first shift and second shift, or second shift and third shift, or first shift and third shift, or you're working two full-time jobs. Everyone's doing it. And what does that mean is that we're all burnt out. I feel like millennials are collectively burnt the fuck out. We ain't got it anymore. It's not in us. We don't have it. All of my friends are dealing with depression and anxiety and burnout. And why is that? Because we can't afford to live. I can't afford to survive. And I should say I'm a lucky person. I have been able to afford to, get a little cute outfit, buy a little wig, go on a little vacation, and that's great. But most people don't have that. And where this burnout is also, where else I'm also seeing this, is in our like collective support, in our GoFundMe's. I know myself, I'm tired, baby. I am tired. I'm tired of the GoFundMe's. And I'm saying this as someone who's done a GoFundMe myself. It seems like GoFundMe's at the beginning started off with like one person here, one person there, very major things. So like surgery, cancer, trying to pay for university or college, like real heavy, big things. But now it seems like there's a GoFundMe every other week just to pay your rent. And this isn't like single moms with 6 kids asking for support. It's like a single person. It's a person with another partner in their home. How you got 2 incomes and you can't afford to live, baby? That's the way the world is working right now. A lot of us have 2 to 3 to 4 incomes in a home and can barely survive. What am I supposed to do with that? How am I supposed to have a productive life if I'm working 2 to 3, 4 jobs and I'm still not making ends meet? I'm still struggling. I'm still check to check. That's the reality of the majority of millennials in today's world. And it also doesn't help that the job market is non-existent. It is non-existent, people. I don't care what you see. Listen, I am convinced Indeed is a pyramid scheme. Okay? I'm convinced, y'all, because has anybody been hired off of Indeed? Oops, I said a major. Okay, sorry, Indeed. Please don't sue me. I don't think you're a pyramid scheme. But what I'm saying is even though people have been applying on Indeed, it's hard to find a job. It's hard. Where's the employment people? And then when you do find a job, they want you to work 40 hours a week for 40K a year. For 40K a year. And that's before taxes. So you mean to tell me I'm getting paid 40K a year, people, before taxes? So what am I really getting? Like maybe 36, 35K, if that. And taxes are going up. So the amount of money I'm actually getting out of that is decreasing. And so what am I supposed to do with that? What are we supposed to do with that? How do we break this hustle culture? How do we do that? Is it lobbying? And I'm posing this question to you all because I think about it daily. How do we get to a place where we aren't living like this? Is it boycotting? Is it writing letters to elected officials? What is it? What do we do? How do we break this cycle of hustling to the point where you have no more left to give to yourself? And I'm seeing this also, especially in the nonprofit sector. So in the nonprofit sector, we are seeing this increase of burnout, especially amongst equity denied people, especially amongst Black women. The amount of Black women that are leaving the nonprofit sector is ridiculous. And again, the reason why is burnout, because We are giving our entire souls, our entire beings as people who do equity work, right? Anyone who does equity work. We are giving our entire being, our soul to this work and getting minimum pay and also getting overworked. And so what does that lead to? Therapy. And therapy is like, listen, I just got an email from my therapist. She's talking about it's going up to $190 a session. That's almost 200. I'm going to do something real black right now. I'm going to round that up to 200. So that is $200 a month or $200 a session. That's not even $200 a month. That's $200 a session, baby. So how many sessions are you supposed to get a month? One? My therapist wants to see me every 2 weeks. That's $400 a month on therapy. That's a grocery bill. That's 2 cell phone bills. That's contribution to my rent. And so now I have to factor in my mental health versus paying my bills. One of them is going to have to decline, and baby, I need a roof over my head. So guess what's declining? That is the choice that millennials are being forced to make. Do I eat this week, or do I make sure that I am okay enough to function as a human being in society? What am I supposed to do? And when we come to the topic of a roof over your head, the cost of rent is ballooning. Okay, I wish we could have, the Pop the Balloon show. I wish we could have that for rents. I wish we could have that for rents. Pop the balloon. That rent is too high. Come to me with something lower. Because why is a 1-bedroom apartment right now, the average cost of a 1-bedroom apartment right now in Toronto, $2,400? $2,400. 2400. That's the average cost. And that's gone down. That's gone down. I don't know what it's at now. Maybe it's a little bit less than that. But I remember the news when they were like, oh my gosh, we're so happy. Rent has gone down in Toronto. It's now $2,400 average for a 1-bedroom apartment. I said, 2,400? Baby, what decreases that? Because I'm not seeing it. So when we take into the fact that people can barely afford rents, what does that also mean? We can't afford homes. And I want to talk about that for a second as well, because when we think about the way in which home ownership is always been inaccessible to equity denied groups. So living with a disability, queer, person of color, black, indigenous, it's always been inaccessible. I remember when my grandmother telling me when she first came to Canada, she couldn't find a single person to rent to her because of her accent and her skin color, being a dark-skinned Trinidadian woman. And she had to rely on white people to help her find a place to live. And to be honest, I don't really see any difference between then and now, except for now it's more collective. It's outside of just equity denied groups. It's all of millennials right now. And not just millennials. I would say most people right now are finding it almost impossible to own a home. My mom's house went from costing almost 300K to now being worth $1 million, which, like, great for my mom. First of all, let's clap for her, because baby, put in that work. That's what you got. But at the same time, what does that mean for me who wants to now own a home? Owning a home in Canada is next to impossible right now. I'm very fortunate. I'm very, very fortunate that where I am in the US, my baby was able to buy a home. We renovated it. We're in it now. So I got very lucky in that way. But if I was in Toronto, I'd still be renting an apartment in the hood. And that's the other thing. Why are apartments in the hood like $2,000? We're in the hood. And it's so wild because I remember, y'all, in 2018, I was going to see apartments in the Weston and Lawrence area of Toronto. If y'all are from Toronto to West End, you know where that is, Weston and Lawrence. I went to go see this apartment. And I remember walking in and seeing roaches, dead roaches on the ground, and them talking about this apartment's $1,300, and for $30 more you can get a view of the ravine. The ravine was a stream with nothing but dirt and garbage in it. But I remember sitting there being like, $1,300 for some roaches. $1,300 for some roaches, that's too expensive. Listen, right now, move me in with the roaches. I'll get some bug spray. $1,300? $1,300, y'all. Please. I would kill for $1,300 rent right now. And don't get me started on the cost of homes. 400,000, 500,000, 600,000, $1 million. And these aren't mansions. You know, I remember when I was younger, a house, like a $400,000 house, $500,000 house, like that was a big house. That was a big house when I was a kid. It's not no more. That is the problem. We're not seeing an increase in wages. We're not seeing a decrease in the cost of homes and groceries. So what does that mean? We're renting. And what does that mean? That's 4 to 5 people in a place to rent. So what does that also result in? It means we're deferring milestones. So people aren't getting married early anymore. They're not having children early anymore. And now that might be a good thing in many different ways, right? Because I do believe that women should have the opportunity to have children at a later time without people looking at them like they're wild. Like, I'm 33, don't have a baby yet, want one. I want to be a mom so bad. And I'm not shaming teen moms or anything like that. But what I'm saying is yes, it's great that we can now have children when we want to have children. The societal expectation has kind of shifted. But at the same time, a lot of us are pushing off having children because we just can't afford it. We just can't afford it. Everyone's talking about this crisis of, oh, not enough children are being born. Decrease the cost of living and maybe some of us will pop out some babies. But that's not happening. We're not seeing that currently. No, what we're seeing is a continued increase to the cost of living. We're seeing an increase to the cost of supports, healthcare, therapy. What also we're seeing is a digital dependency. So I'm directly tying this to the therapy thing because everyone's talking about the fact that folks are using ChatGPT to deal with their mental health. I had a conversation with someone yesterday where they said their young daughter has been putting all of her conversations, questions through ChatGPT. And the reason for that is affordability. Now, I'm not supporting it. I think using ChatGPT for your mental health is a horrible choice, people. It is the environment implications aside, which are extremely important, thinking about also the impact of that on your actual mental health. But the reason for that is because we've already built a digital dependency. We've, as a society, especially for millennials, Gen Z, the younger generation, we have created a dependency on social media for literally everything. And people are confused as to why folks are using it for therapy. People are using it for therapy because we use it for finding relationships, whether that's platonic or romantic. We use it for ordering our clothing, our food. We use it to book vacations. We use it to figure out what's going on in the world. We use it to communicate. We have created such a dependency on the digital world that of course folks are going to look to ChatGPT because why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they when they've looked. First of all, therapy is also online now, virtual therapy, which is great. I think virtual therapy is great, but then you have these apps that are coming out that are really commercializing therapy in a way that like supports capitalism, not actual mental health. And so folks are turning to the digital world for literally everything. And what is that causing? A sense of loneliness. In myself included. I have so many friends that feel lonely, that feel unsupported, that feel disconnected. And it's because we have shifted into this digital world where everything happens online. Everything. Your work, your friendships, your relationships, your mental health. And so, where does that leave people? When we're not having that human to human connection. Where having that human to human connection feels weird now. When I'm outside and someone approaches me randomly, like, part of me is like, why are we doing this? And then I have to remind myself, like, Shani, this is what we do. People to people connection is what we do. But so many of us feel disconnected from each other. The digital world has allowed us to see so much, to learn so much, to, yes, connect in a lot of ways. But when your connection is only made online, when you have no connections outside of that, where does that leave a person? How are you supposed to connect to yourself? I think there's this feeling of constantly needing to be on. There's no breaks. There's absolutely no breaks. You constantly need to be accessible to everybody, your work, your family, your friends. I keep telling Bae, I want to get a house phone. I want to get a house phone and tell people to call me on that. My cell phone's for emergencies. Because why does it feel like I have to be accessible to every single person in my life all of the time? And if you're not accessible, here comes the accusations of you not caring, of you disconnecting. People literally get scared, and I've been at fault for this too, where I've had a friend that I've had online and I don't see them post online every day for a week, and I'm like, "Hi, hello, are you okay? Are you safe? What's going on?" And they're just enjoying life. Why is it so hard for us to create space for us to be unaccessible? Sometimes I want to be unaccessible. I don't want people to be able to get a hold of me. And I want to be able to do that without feeling like I have to write a 10-page letter and post it on my social media so folks understand why I need a break. I think we're also seeing right now in the world that it's not as it's not as nice outside of the places that we live that we thought it was. I don't know how many friends I've had being like, I'm leaving the US, I'm leaving Canada, I'm moving somewhere else. Only for us to realize that the same issues that we're having in North America, people are having everywhere. The cost of living has gone up everywhere. Millennials globally, okay? This isn't just a North American thing. Millennials globally have no idea what the fuck is going on anymore. They have no idea how we're making it through this. We don't know. We don't know. Millennials, we don't know what's going on. And it's wild because we are in this place right now where we are supposed to be the next generation that is making shifts in the world. We are supposed to be the generation that's making decisions. We are supposed to be the generation that has our hands firmly grasped on how this world moves. And yet we have no control. We have no control. I think that's also part of the millennial crisis. We have no control over anything. And I'm not saying this to be apathetic. I'm not saying this to say that we can't go out and organize. What I mean is that the power has not been transferred. And I'm not saying that it's always been transferred very easily because there's always going to be people that don't want to let go of power. But the generation before us really has not let go of their power politically, structurally, socially. We are not the designers of our worlds, of our realities. We instead have to rely on people who haven't been in our position in generations. And actually, we're never in our position. They never had to deal with this type of inflation. They never had to deal with this inability to survive. They haven't had to deal with it. And I'm saying specifically people in power because again, recognizing that equity denied people have always struggled. We've always had to try to find a way in a system that created no power for us, no space for us, no voice for us. We've always had to find our voice. We've always had to fight for that. But I think there's a different level to it now where it feels almost impossible to get by. It feels almost impossible to get through. It's not impossible. That is what I want to say. It's not impossible, but it feels like it right now. And it feels like it because again, we do not have our hands grasped on to what we need to create that change. Because we have people that are 70, 80 years old, 60 plus, still running all of our systems. And I'm not saying that to be ageist because I think there is a role for the older generation in supporting us in moving forward. I think elders, and when I say elders, I don't mean that in the in the ceremonial sense within indigeneity. When I say elders, I really mean our older generation, our elders. They have roles in community and society and in decision making. I want to make that very clear. Our elders have roles in decision making, but they shouldn't be the only ones making decisions. Just like we as millennials should not be the only ones making decisions. I'm so interested in hearing what Gen Z has to say and what they think is the right direction to move forward. The problem is none of us are being heard. The system's broken. The system is broken, y'all. And we are not even being allowed the tools to fix it. We are being told it is not our time. And so where does that leave millennials? Where does that leave us where our dreams and our future that we thought we had a possibility at are no longer there? It means we have to reimagine and re-envision a new future. And again, equity denied people have always been reimagining, re-envisioning a new future. But I think a lot of us are tired. We're tired. We're exhausted. We're burnt out. We need help. Help me. That's where we're at. We need it. And I think that means that we have to collectively come together in new ways. We have to get offline, y'all. We have to get in person. We have to reconnect. We have to see each other again, the humanity in each other again. I think the digital world has removed some of that humanity. And I think in a small part, that's why we are where we are today. People don't see the humanity in each other anymore. Everyone is a statistic. Everyone is a label. Everyone is an enemy. None of us are in this together. Not collectively. We have pockets. We have pockets of people that are in this. But collectively, as a group, as millennials, we're not in this together. And it's because millennials with privilege and power don't see a need to change a system that they're going to inherit. They don't see the need in that. Why change a system that you're going to get? Because you're in a position of power. So those of us that don't have the power and don't have the privilege are being told to just sit by and watch things happen. And I think this world has made a lot of us apathetic because we're burnt out. I don't know how many folks I know that are like, I'm leaving the nonprofit sector to go work in corporate because I need to get paid more. I need better benefits. We have commercialized, and this is going to be another podcast topic, but we have commercialized the nonprofit sector. And so what that means is we've turned it into capitalism, but we've underfunded it. I shouldn't say we. We have not underfunded it. The system has underfunded it. And so because they've underfunded it, that means that we're not being paid enough to continue to support community. And you might say, well, supporting community should not be something that you're paid for. I agree. I agree. But we've turned them into jobs now. And people deserve proper compensation. Because the reality is grassroots organizations aren't funded enough. But I'm not going to get into that too deep because again, that's a topic for another episode. I think also something that is shifting that I think is really great though for millennials is that we're redefining what success is. We're rejecting those traditional ideas of success. Why? Because we've had to. I've seen a lot of posts about, oh, shifting cultural and societal identities and values are causing estrangements in families between millennials and their parents and grandparents. And yeah, it's because the future that we thought we were going to have, the future that they thought we were going to have, doesn't exist. And you can't have values and traditions for a reality that is non-existent. We don't have that anymore. And so we've had to rebuild new traditions, new ideas of what redefining success is. I'm not gonna lie, I love this younger generation that be out here like, I'm not doing that. I'm saying no to that. I quit. Goodbye. That's something us millennials really need to find a way to incorporate into the work that we're doing. We need to figure out how to say no to the burnout. Because we still have the hustle culture of our parents, of our grandparents. We still got that because they had to hustle. But again, their hustling looked different. My mom could hustle on one job, maybe two. She didn't need three or four. We need three or four. You need to keep you three or four jobs and a passive income. So we need to shift, and we are shifting in what our ideas of success are. So getting married at 20 and children by 23 might not be successful, but having a amazing career by 30 is. We're also shifting the way that we look at family. We are not putting up with abusive family members anymore. I'm saying that straight up. Listen to me. Abusive family members, you're out. You're out. You're out. We're not doing it anymore. And if that causes estrangement, it causes estrangement. Because in a world where we cannot afford therapy, baby, somebody's got to go, and it's not going to be me. It's going to be the person causing the distress to my mental health. We are demanding more equity and accountability. I will say that. And that's something that I love about us. I think we are also tired, but we still have hope for a future. I will say that. I know I just spent the last bit being like, these are all of the things that are wrong with the world. But what I will say is, I've seen a lot of friends reimagining what being an adult is and like trying to build that joy in where they can. Because that's the only way we're going to do it. We have to integrate it. Society has convinced us that joy is a reward, that rest is a reward, and that you're only able to have those things if you've worked yourself into the ground. And we've convinced ourselves of that. We've convinced ourselves that, hey, if I'm not hustling, I don't deserve a vacation. I don't deserve to buy myself that. I don't deserve to have a good day. And that's part of the problem. Rest and joy is not owned by capitalism. It's owned by us. We get to decide that. One of the things that I've learned the most through my work is admitting when I'm not okay. I'm not doing it anymore at work. I'm not pushing through it. I'm not pretending like I'm fine. I'm going to tell you I'm not okay. You're going to know it. And I encourage my millennial babies, my lovelies out there, we need to start being more honest about where we're at. Because we're being honest amongst ourselves. We're telling each other, girl, I cannot do another day at work. Or, hey, boo, I'm exhausted today. I've been crying all day at work. We tell each other that. But baby, we're not telling work that. So we need to get better at that. We need to get better at protecting ourselves. That's what I want for millennials. I want us to protect ourselves more than what we do. Because I think we have been taught by that older generation to keep your head down, keep it pushing, especially at work. We're not doing that no more. We're not doing that anymore. These organizations, these corporations, these jobs need an awakening. And the younger generation has started it. They have started that awakening. It's on us to do the rest. It is on us to do the rest. It is important for us to do the rest. It's important for us to recognize that this crisis that we're in was not caused by us, but we have to pull ourselves out of it because no one's coming to the rescue. The economy is not getting better. Things are getting more expensive. And if we don't collectively come together and support each other through this, no one's going to do it for us. So, what does that look like? That might look like, I don't know, building a damn commune, putting your money together and all buying a house or some land. It might look like starting an organization and getting the funding yourself. It's creating new opportunities. I am constantly feeling like I cannot make it. And I'm sitting here smiling, being like, but I can. That's something that I think I have learned from therapy, my very expensive therapy. I'm saying very expensive. There's probably other people out there paying $500 a session. Hey, shout out to you, Orna. Couples therapy would love to have a session with you for the free 99 if you're willing to offer it. Because $500 is out of my capacity. But what I've learned in therapy is that it's very easy for myself and I would say for others to sink into depressive episodes about the way the world is, about the fact that we can't afford anything. We can't afford shit. And it's very easy to feel like it's never going to get better. And I don't know, I'm not going to say it's not going to get better. I think it will get better. I just don't know how. And that's what I want to reimagine and re envision. That's what I want to plan with friends. That's what I want to think out is okay, coming to the reality of this is the way that the world is. And it's not going to change at the hands of anyone else. It's despite not having my firm grasp on the systems that I can make changes in other ways. And like, I'd really love to hear from folks. Like, how are you making changes in your life? How are you dealing with the realization that the future we thought we were going to have as kids isn't a reality? How are you dealing with saying goodbye to the whims of the 90s and 2000s before the crash of 2008? How are you saying goodbye to the person that you thought you were going to be? Because I think that's also part of it. It's not just the dream of the future that you thought you were going to have. So the house, the good paying job, the vacations every other month, right? The delusions that you have as a child and a teenager. But how are you mourning and grieving the loss of the person that you thought you were going to be? And the person that you thought you were going to be was probably a very happy person. And right now, happiness might feel elusive in many different ways. And that's something that I've had to come to terms with is grieving the person that I thought I was going to be. That Shany, that would have been out there living her best life in a huge penthouse in Toronto, traveling the world, and maybe that's still that I still have hopes for, but I thought I was going to be her at like 25. I thought I was going to be her at 25. And I think like we don't mourn enough the futures that we thought we were going to have. We don't mourn enough the dreams that we have. We shove them down. We shove them down and they create resentment and they create anger. And listen, I'm going to say this. Anger is such an important emotion. Don't let anyone tell you that you shouldn't be angry or that anger isn't a good emotion or that, as you get older, your anger will go away. It won't go away. Anger is an important emotion because it's useful. What you do with your anger is the most important thing. But what we do is we shove those dreams and those ideas down to the point where they go into a pit and they build and they build and you get angrier and more resentful and more bitter and more prickly and more fuck everybody and everything. And then you're just left with that anger. You're just sitting with it. It's in your chest, it's in your gut, it's in your entire being, it's in your nervous system. It's all you can feel. And what happens is that any happiness that you have becomes fleeting. It feels fleeting. That version of you that you dreamed of that was going to be happy, you feel like you can't be that. That happiness will never come. It becomes fleeting. You even forget the fact that you've had moments of happiness because all that you can feel is that resentment and anger and grief. And I think more of us need to grieve those parts of ourselves, those visions, those dreams. And it's not about necessarily letting them go because, like I said, I still have hope for those dreams. But it's about grieving the timeline. That's the thing that a lot of millennials need to learn to do is grieving the timeline that you had for how you thought your life was going to lay out. Because the older you get, the more you realize timelines mean absolutely nothing half of the time. Half of the time. Sometimes they mean everything. Those timelines mean everything, but half of the time they don't. They go out the window. You have new dreams. You meet new people. You create new realities, new worlds, new everything. And you need to mourn the stuff that didn't come to be or hasn't come to be yet. It's something I'm really trying to practice with myself is how am I grieving the things that didn't happen or can't happen or might not happen while still honoring the things that did? Because as millennials, we have accomplished so much, y'all. We have done so much. We are some of the most beautiful, amazing, creative, thoughtful, kind, powerful people in the world. I know I started off at the beginning being like, we have no power, we have nothing. Yeah, society tells us that. Society feels that way, and it does feel that way sometimes, and sometimes that's the truth, but it's not always the truth. Sometimes we have the ability to change our surroundings for the better. And that really looks like being connected to yourself and others. Who are you? Who are you in this world? As a millennial, as a 30-year-old, as a 40-year-old, as a, what is it, millennial 1981 to 1996, right? As a 29-year-old, as a 28-year-old, like what makes you you? Who are you in this world? That's what you need to figure out. Before you create this timeline, before you start feeling bad about not achieving your milestones, before you get bitter about the way of the world, who are you? What do you want? Where do you see yourself? Reimagine your dreams as an adult. We hold on to our dreams that we had as children before we knew how the world worked, before we knew the reality of everything, before we saw how systems can oppress us. We have those dreams, and yet we stop dreaming at a certain age. We stop reimagining. Yeah, I know who Shany at 5 year old wanted to be. I know who I wanted to be at 11, a Lakers girl. Y'all, I had this Lakers jersey dress, and if you had to ask me, I would have been, okay, hitting it on the ball court. That's what I thought at 11. I thought I was going to be a judge, and then I found out you had to be a lawyer first, and I said, whew, I can't just skip that. Right before you know the realities of the world, you have so many visions and dreams, and then you become an adult, and you're like, oh shit, that was not realistic. But you don't dream something else. Why? Why don't you dream other things? Why don't you reimagine other things? Not out of survival, because I know we know how to pivot. Baby, us millennials know how to pivot. That is something that we can do, but that's not reimagining. Pivoting is not reimagining. It's not dreaming. We pivot because we have to. We pivot out of survival. We pivot because we have no other choice. What is your adult dream? What do you want to be? Who is the adult millennial you? In the current state of the world, in the current reality of the world, who are you? Rediscover that. Take that opportunity to really dig deep. We do this for relationships. We do this for everything else. And even then, actually, I shouldn't say we do it for everything else, because a lot of times we don't do this for relationships when we should. But you have to fall in love with yourself again. That's how you get past the burnout. That's how you get back up on your feet. That's how you say, fuck the system. I'm going to make it anyhow. You fall in love with yourself again. You fall in love with all of your abilities and skills and your nuances and even the bad parts of yourself. You fall in love with that again. Because if there's one thing that a millennial knows how to do, it's to be a critic of ourselves. We critique ourselves constantly. I don't know a single millennial who doesn't do that. We know how to critique, critique, critique. But how do we build up ourselves? How do we pour into ourselves? We do so much pouring into the system, into capitalism, into our jobs. How do we pour into ourselves? Y'all remember vision boards? Y'all remember vision boards? Do a vision board. Okay? I remember when vision boards were really big in like 2014, 2013. Bring back out the vision boards. Let's rebuild it. You remember when The Secret was really popular? Everyone was trying to figure out the secret to life. It's you. You are the secret to life. Each of us individual people, we are the secrets to life. And that's what we need to get back to. So, as I'm like bringing this to an end and wrapping this up, the millennial crisis, what I've realized over the years is that oftentimes we allow systems to break us because fighting against it feels harder. And there's this quote by Octavia Butler that I love, and it's, the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. And I actually have that quote tattooed on my arm. You can't see it right now. Oh, no, it's further up. Sorry, y'all. But it is one of my favorite quotes because it reminds me that every time I think that I can't make it, every time that I think things won't get better, every time I think that I should just give up, it's because I've forgotten the power that I have. And you all have power. Every single last one of you has power. What you do with it is up to you. How you wield it is up to you. And no, I'm not about to quote Spider-Man, but You have the power to reimagine what your life is going to be like. And that means being honest. Y'all, when I say reimagine, I don't mean be delusional. I'm not sitting here being like, though I think manifestation is super important and I do think it's real and I do think it works. I'm not just talking about manifesting, I'm talking about being realistic. What's within your power? What's within your individual power that you have to shift things in your life? Think about it. Get out a pen and a book and write down a notebook and write down your powers and your strengths and starting from within and remembering that despite the fact that the system has disenfranchised millennials in a very impactful way, that we should not count ourselves out. And that's what I want to remind you all, that you still got it. You're still here. And despite the millennial crisis, we're all going to make it. So thank you again for listening and watching, my lovelies. And I hope you have a great day. Bye, y'all.